Subscribe to the channel and hear even more exciting stories. When I discovered a family secret that changed everything. Hey Reddit, throw RA because, honestly, I don't want this attached to my main account. If my family ever found this, I think my life would implode for real. Anyway, I, 27F, always thought my family was boring in the best possible way. You know those sitcom families who argue about who forgot to buy milk, but at the end of the day, everyone hugs it out? That was us. My parents, still together after 30 years, always preached about honesty, loyalty, family above all. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, and even though we all live in different states now, we text daily like clockwork. I genuinely believe that if the world ended, the Thompsons would still have Sunday dinner on Zoom. But here's the thing about family group chats and picture-perfect Christmas cards. You only see what people want you to see. There were tiny red flags, now that I look back. Like the time my mom freaked out when I brought up doing a 23andMe DNA test for fun. Or how my dad always tensed up if anyone mentioned that summer before my little brother was born. I always brushed it off as typical parental weirdness, like, who doesn't have a secret or two? Still, something about those reactions stuck in my head. And then last month, while visiting my parents for my mom's birthday, I got bored and went looking for a deck of cards. Instead, I found a dusty old box at the back of the hall closet, wedged behind some winter coats, like it had been hiding for decades. Inside, a stack of faded letters, a worn journal, and a photo that made my stomach drop. I know. Opening a box that clearly wasn't meant for me was a total invasion of privacy. But something about that box screamed, "Open me." And anyway, who keeps an actual physical lockbox in the age of Google Drive unless they're hiding something? So, like any reasonable adult, I justified my curiosity as preserving family history. Right. The letters were all in my mom's handwriting, tied together with a faded blue ribbon. The journal was older, leather-bound, the edges soft with age. But the photo, that was what made my hands shake. It was dated 1996, a full year before my little brother Jake was born. In it, my dad stood beside a woman I'd never seen before. She was stunning, with wild curly hair and a crooked grin, her arms slung around my dad's waist like they'd known each other forever. They looked happy, too happy, like I'd accidentally stumbled on someone else's memories. My dad looked young, free, almost like a stranger. Tucked in the corner of the photo, in my mom's handwriting, that summer. Cue internal panic. Was this some ex my mom hated? A long-lost friend? Or, no, that was too soap opera, even for my family. But why hide the picture? And why did my mom keep her letters tied up in the same box? I flipped open the journal, half expecting to find grocery lists or sappy poems. Instead, page after page detailed daily entries from that same summer. The handwriting was unfamiliar. I skimmed the first entry. Met Tom again today. Feels like no time has passed. Tom is my dad. Met again? What did that mean? Suddenly, I felt like I was holding a bomb I didn't know how to disarm. My heart was pounding out of my chest, palms sweating, the air in the closet suddenly too thick. Every sitcom laugh track in my head was replaced with a high-pitched whine. I snapped the box shut and practically ran to my old bedroom, clutching it like it might disappear. For the first time in my life, I didn't know if I wanted answers. But there was no way I could leave it alone now. I locked my bedroom door, like a teenager hiding from their parents, which, apparently, I still was at heart, and dumped the contents of the box onto my old comforter. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly ripped the ribbon off the letters. I started with the journal, hoping for a straightforward explanation. No such luck. The entries were weird. They weren't addressed to anyone, but they read like letters. Each one started with the same date and a single line about the weather. July 3rd, humid, thunder in the afternoon. Then, Tom and I drove out to the lake again. He says he can't imagine his life without me. I almost believe him. The writer didn't sign her name. There were dozens of entries, picnics, late-night drives, inside jokes about the ice cream shop in town. My dad's name popped up on almost every page. What really twisted my brain was how she wrote about him, with so much hope and longing, like a teenager crushing on her first love. But my dad wasn't a lovesick teenager. He was supposed to be married to my mom that summer. My mouth went dry. Was my dad having an affair? Had he been in love with this mystery woman? Or, God, was my mom the mystery woman? But the handwriting didn't match, and nothing in these pages sounded like her. I rifled through the letters next, desperate for context. All were from my mom to someone named R. The tone started casual, updates about our family, stories about us kids, but grew tense. I wish things could be different. I hope you understand why this has to stay between us. Jake deserves the truth someday, but I'm not brave enough yet. I stared at that line for what felt like an hour. Jake, my little brother? The truth? My stomach flipped. I realized, with a jolt, that I'd just crossed into territory I couldn't unlearn. Every sentence screamed that my family was hiding something huge, something that was about to explode right in my face. I sat there on my childhood bed, piecing together fragments of a story that didn't belong to me, but, somehow, now defined my whole family. My mind was racing. Was Jake not really my full brother? Was R, whoever she was, actually his mother? Or was this all some melodramatic misunderstanding, and I was just letting my anxiety spiral out of control? I tried to breathe, but my brain wouldn't stop. I needed answers, and waiting for them to magically reveal themselves wasn't an option. So, like any overcaffeinated millennial in crisis, I dove into full detective mode. First, I compared the handwriting from the journal and the letters. Not a match, definitely two different people. Next, I grabbed my phone, snapped photos of the most suspicious pages, and started Googling the name Tom Thompson, plus our small town, plus lake, plus everything else I could think of. No juicy headlines or missing persons cases, just a bunch of irrelevant phishing forums and church newsletters. Plan B, subtle interrogation. Over dinner, I watched my parents closer than ever, dissecting every word, every side eye. My dad seemed tired but normal. My mom laughed at my dad's terrible puns, but her laugh sounded brittle, too bright. I tried to ask about that summer. Casually, of course. Didn't you guys used to go to the lake all the time? Who was that friend you had back then? My mom froze mid-bite. My dad's fork clinked on his plate. For a second, nobody breathed. Then Mom smiled. Tight, not quite reaching her eyes, and said, "Oh, that was ages ago. Just some old friends we lost touch with." Dad grunted and changed the subject to the weather. Red flag city. I excused myself after dinner and texted my sister, Ellie, in all caps. "Do you remember anyone named R from when we were kids?" She replied with a string of question marks. Then, "Are you okay? You're acting weird." I told her I'd explain later, but in my gut, I knew I had to keep digging. I was chasing a ghost, and for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to catch it. That night, sleep felt like a foreign concept. My mind kept spinning, replaying dinner in slow motion. My mom's tight smile, my dad's sudden silence. Both of them expertly shutting down the conversation like they'd rehearsed it 1,000 times. If I'd learned anything from years of binge-watching true crime, it's that people rarely react that fast unless there's something to hide. I lay in the dark, my phone lighting up every few minutes as Ellie sent increasingly frantic texts. "Is this about Mom and Dad? Did you find something bad?" I typed and deleted a dozen responses. I wanted to protect her, but I also couldn't carry the anxiety alone. Finally, I sent her one photo, the picture of Dad with the mysterious curly-haired woman. No caption. 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed. "Who the hell is that? That's not Mom." It was almost a relief that she saw it, too. I told her everything, about the box, the letters, the journal, the weird entries. Ellie fell silent for a long time, then called me. Her voice was hushed, like we were kids again sneaking snacks past bedtime. "Do you think Mom knows?" she whispered. "I don't know. I think she does, but she doesn't want to talk about it." We went back and forth, trying to remember anything out of place from our childhood. Extra gifts at Christmas, hushed arguments behind closed doors, strange phone calls. All we could come up with were vague memories of grown-up stuff we weren't supposed to overhear. Ellie was anxious, but also weirdly excited. She's always loved drama, and the thought of a hidden family mystery was both terrifying and, in a messed-up way, thrilling. We made a plan. I'd ask Jake tomorrow if he remembered anything odd. "Don't tell him everything yet," Ellie warned. "Just feel him out." I agreed, hung up, and lay awake staring at the ceiling. For the first time ever, I was afraid of what my own family might say if I kept pushing, but I was more afraid of what it would mean if I didn't. The next morning, I woke up groggy and jittery, like I'd run a marathon in my sleep. The tension from last night clung to me like a second skin. At breakfast, Jake wandered in, bleary-eyed, wearing a t-shirt from his college that he never actually attended. Typical Jake. Easygoing, always late, never one to dwell on drama. If anyone in the family could accidentally spill something important, it'd be him. I waited until Mom left for her morning walk and Dad retreated to the garage. Then, casually as I could, I slid onto the kitchen stool next to Jake, pushing a mug of coffee his way. Hey, do you remember anyone from when we were kids, someone named R? Or anyone Mom and Dad were super weird about? He shrugged, blowing on his coffee. Not really. I mean, there was that lady who used to come by sometimes when we were little. I think her name started with an R. She always brought brownies, but Mom got tense when she was around. He looked at me sideways. Why? I pulled out my phone and, with a shaky breath, showed him the photo. His eyebrows shot up. Whoa, that's not Mom. Who is she? I could see the gears turning in his head, panic and curiosity warring for control. Wait, is this about that summer everyone refuses to talk about? I always thought it was just because Grandpa died or something. I told him about the box, the letters, and the journal, careful not to overwhelm him but laying out enough to let the seriousness sink in. Jake got quiet, his usual jokey demeanor dissolving. So what do you think I'm not really Mom and Dad's kid? The question hung in the air, heavy and raw. I didn't have the heart to say yes, not without real proof. I don't know, Jake. But something isn't right. I needed you to know. He nodded, rubbing his face. Okay, so what do we do now? For the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes, a fear that mirrored my own. The rest of the morning felt like we were both actors in a play, pretending not to know our lines had suddenly changed. Jake retreated to the backyard with his headphones, pacing like he was working up the nerve to face a firing squad. I spent the next hour staring at the old journal, flipping through pages I'd already half memorized, searching for something, anything, that would tell us what to do. Ellie called around noon. I put her on speaker so Jake could hear. She cut straight to the point. We can't keep this between us. We need answers. Tonight, we sit them down and ask, together. My stomach dropped. I wasn't ready for a family drama showdown, but Ellie was right. Jake looked pale, but he nodded, his jaw set. Let's just get it over with, he muttered. The rest of the day crawled by in anxious slow motion. I caught my parents exchanging glances during lunch. Mom seemed on edge, Dad unusually quiet. Maybe they sensed we knew something, or maybe it was just the usual undercurrent of family tension I'd never noticed before. When evening came, the three of us gathered in the living room. I held the box on my lap, heart hammering. We found something. I started, my voice shaky but loud. And we need you to tell us the truth about that summer. About the letters. About our. My mom's face drained of color. My dad just stared at the box like it might bite him. For a moment, nobody said a word. Then, to my shock, Mom started to cry, not the delicate, single-tear kind, but a deep, body-racking sob that shook her whole frame. Dad reached for her, his own eyes shining with tears. We always knew this day would come, he said softly. You deserve to know the truth. But it's not the story you think it is. In that moment, the roles reversed. We were the children, desperate for answers, and our parents were the ones terrified to give them. The room felt impossibly small, the air thick with 30 years of secrets about to unravel. Mom took a shaky breath, wiping tears from her cheeks. Her name was Rebecca, she began, her voice raw and thin. We met her the summer before Jake was born. She'd just moved to town. Your dad and I. We were struggling, not with each other, but with trying to have another child. I had 3 miscarriages that year. I was falling apart. Rebecca became a friend, a lifeline. She was funny, wild, and exactly the chaos I needed when everything else felt broken. Dad took over, squeezing Mom's hand. Things got complicated. Rebecca and I, we made a mistake. It only happened once, but she found out she was pregnant. She didn't want to keep it, but your mom convinced her, begged her, not to give up. She wanted so badly for us to have the family we dreamed about. So, we made an arrangement. Rebecca would carry the baby, and after he was born, we'd raise him as our own. She moved away when Jake was a few months old, but she stayed in touch for a while. The letters, the journal, they're hers. We kept them in case Jake ever needed to know. The words echoed in my mind, heavy and surreal. Jake sat frozen, his coffee untouched, as if he was still trying to process the idea that the story of his life was never really his own. Ellie was crying quietly on the phone. Mom tried to smile through her tears. We wanted to tell you both, but there was never a right time. Every year, it got harder. I'm so sorry we lied. Jake, you are our son, no matter what. Jake looked at them, his face pale, but his voice steady. Does she know about me now? Is she still alive? Dad nodded. We haven't spoken in years, but last we heard, she was well. We never wanted to keep this from you forever. We just didn't know how. The secret was out, and with it, a lifetime of questions neither of us had ever thought to ask. For a few minutes, nobody said anything. It felt like all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room, replaced by the weight of all those hidden years. Jake stared at his hands, knuckles white, like he was waiting for the ground to split open. I tried to process everything at once. My parents' heartbreak, Rebecca's impossible choice, the reality that my little brother's life was stitched together by the best and worst of human intentions. Ellie's voice broke the silence, thin and watery through the speaker. Jake, you're still our brother. That doesn't change anything for us. But if you want to find her, Rebecca, I'll help. We all will. Jake finally looked up, eyes rimmed red but steady. I don't even know what I want right now. I feel like I don't know who I am. I love you guys. But you lied to me. My whole life. There was no anger in his voice, just sadness, and maybe a trace of relief at finally knowing the truth. I need time. Mom reached out, but Jake flinched away. Just give me space, okay? He got up and left the room, shutting the door with a soft finality. The rest of us sat in stunned silence. Dad stared at the wall. Mom held her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. Ellie was crying openly now, and I felt strangely numb, like I was hovering outside my body, watching someone else's family come apart at the seams. Later that night, we gathered for a family meeting. No yelling, just exhaustion. Dad apologized again. Mom told Jake, we chose you every day. We'd choose you again. Jake nodded but kept his distance. Ellie tried to crack a joke, and for the first time, nobody laughed. We talked about therapy, about maybe reaching out to Rebecca someday, about what it meant to rebuild trust. It wasn't tidy or pretty, but it was real. The perfect family myth was dead, but maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Maybe, for the first time, we were actually being honest with each other. The days after the secret came out felt strangely quiet, like the world was waiting to see what we'd do next. Jake kept mostly to himself, crashing at a friend's place for a few nights. Mom and Dad moved around each other carefully, trying not to smother him, or me, or Ellie, with apologies or explanations we weren't ready to hear. Instead of group texts and silly family memes, our chat was mostly silent, broken up by the occasional love you or heart emoji that felt both desperate and necessary. I spent a lot of time thinking about what it means to be a family. I always thought honesty was our thing, that we built our closeness on the foundation of telling the truth. Turns out, sometimes people lie because they love you, because they're scared, or because they don't know how to do the right thing without hurting someone. It doesn't make it okay, but it makes it human. A week later, Jake came back for Sunday dinner. No one pretended things were normal. Mom and Dad asked if he wanted to reach out to Rebecca, and he nodded, tentative, but willing to know more. Ellie offered to help him write an email, and for a moment, it almost felt like old times. There was hurt, but also hope. I realized that our story was still being written, just with all the messy footnotes included this time. If I could give advice to anyone facing a similar bombshell, don't be afraid to dig for answers, even if it blows up the story you thought you knew. The truth is always more complicated, and sometimes more freeing, than the secrets people keep. Give yourself and your family space to be messy, to mourn, and to heal. No one has a perfect family. But maybe honesty, real, painful, imperfect honesty, can bring you closer to one than any secret ever could. Thanks for reading, Reddit. If you're out there wondering whether you should open that old box in the closet, just know you're not alone.